welcome to the June 3rd Telecom Advisory Committee meeting. This is our call of order. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from last meeting?
Just one quick thing. I'm not sure if everyone knows. This is Dan Gilbert. He's a new member of our committee. The mayor appointed him the other day. And this position, did you apply?
I haven't applied yet.
Okay, but you're thinking of it.
Yes, I will.
Okay, cool.
Outstanding. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, minutes.
Should we all introduce ourselves?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm Paul St. Pierre. I'm the acting chair of the committee. I'm the representative also from the EDIC.
Tom Peak, and the council's representative, Precinct 3 City Councilor.
Kevin Mulligan, temporary clerk, but it appears to become permanent.
You're doing a hell of a job.
How that works.
I'm Jason Miranda.
I'm Stan Diamond. I'm also the Vice President of Easthampton Media.
I'm Patricia Huffman. I have background in tech going back to 1985.
I'm Dan Gilbert. I'm excited to work on this with you folks, and I don't have any history in government anything, but I have a small electronics business in the area and a bunch of computer and telecommunications history, but not professional.
Harry Schwab from the planning board.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Public speak. Public.
Well, I guess Patricia's from the public.
I suppose that's true.
If there's anything you want to say, it's public speak time.
Okay, so the public survey went out successfully. The results that we saw late last week seem to be overwhelmingly positive in support of what we are doing.
I can share some of that stuff now. I have the, just beyond the Excel spreadsheet that I shared, the Microsoft Forms does sort of do a summary of the data and gives you a bunch of graphs and pie charts and things like that. So unfortunately it doesn't allow me to share it.
Yeah, I tried to log into it.
Yeah.
Just told I don't have a work account.
So I could take screenshots and share it, but I think as of right now, we have 256 responses. Overwhelmingly, they're from residents and not businesses. We've got 7 businesses so far. We've got 200 and some odd residents with roughly 196 people who are homeowners and 49 who are renters. So that's how it breaks down there. Overwhelming, I can't speak to sort of the results quite yet, but I can say that what seems to be on everybody's mind is cost, obviously, and providing a lower cost option than charter. So, but overwhelmingly positive and overwhelmingly interested. Let me find the one question. Overwhelmingly, also, almost everyone on here is a cord cutter, which I guess is not necessarily that surprising given that most of our outreach has been on social media.
But it is a sign that we might want to broaden our pool.
Yes, yeah. So I can go over this at some point, or if people want to pass this around and take a look at that. The next step to drive more people to it is I got these little tickets made up that I shared with you all that just basically have the survey URL, and I put some out today. I just picked these up this afternoon, and I want to put some at the library and some at some different businesses around town, like at the point of sale, and also library, senior center, and then Tandem and any
Right.
place,
Yeah.
Shelburne Coffee,
Big E's would be a good spot.
Big E. I don't know who else to do, but if we want to divide these up and people want to take some,
I'll put a
Easthampton
stack on the
Media.
front desk at Easthampton
Yeah,
Media.
that would be great. I think that would.
So this I think is the really question 28, which is the if
Yes,
we were to do
that's it.
this,
Yes.
what'd you think about it? We got. Would you be interested? 191 yes, very much. 59 maybe I need to evaluate. 3 no, I'm satisfied with my current service. And 1 other.
One of those
So-
3 was also my favorite comment so far is stay out of the free market commies.
Oh, I bet I know who that was actually.
That's my favorite. And like the person would provide information. One of the questions was like, hey, do you want to share your name?
What the hell was that?
You know, all this data remains private and anonymous, and he was like, yeah, likely story. And then we're assuming it's a man, but
I ain't in trouble.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So if everybody wants to grab, I had 500 printed.
Yeah.
Amazing how little 500 looks.
I'm
But,
trying to sit back and think around.
if you want to take some and just pass them around, I have another 500 being printed.
It's gonna be right.
I'll take.
Got a ton already because I printed them out too.
Oh, you did too?
Yeah.
Almost half said they'd be an early adopter as like a
Yeah.
test. That's
Yep.
cool.
So some of that data in there is, you know, confidential within our group, like address information. So we are getting information that we can share, or we can start to
To drive
map
people to the-
and put down and see
You
where
can
the
hand them out on the
density is.
golf course, Harry.
I'll take whatever's left and I'll bring it to the library.
Cool.
But I do want to talk to the librarians too.
Also probably should put some out at the front desk at the COA.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there and talk to some folks and.
Did anybody put anything at the community center?
Which one?
At Clarksville.
No, not yet. No, I just got these today.
People going there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You'd probably pick up a lot more renters that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, like, just hand them out on the street. Hey, take the survey.
That Korean restaurant, that place is loaded every single night. in there.
Kasara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am trying to get Mo at the chamber to put it out. She did share it when we initially put it on Facebook, but I'm hoping she put it in this month's newsletter to her members. So
When you posted these online, I shared a copy of it
Yeah.
with the Next Door organization also.
I'm gonna reshare it. I'll be sharing it like every couple of days from now on because we've sort of, I think we've stalled at 256.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we'll do another push.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I was curious, what is the Next Door organization? I was curious, I sent out an email. What is the Next Door organization?
It's an organization of it's an organization of neighborhoods. And each neighborhood has a team leader, and people can subscribe to it. And people ask for help doing this, or they want to buy this, or they're looking for someone to do work for them, and it just gets answered within the community. And it has nothing to do with Facebook. It's a private organization. But it's it's an extra communication tool.
Is Nicole still doing her mayor's update?
Yeah. Oh, we should totally get on there and do that. That's a great idea. I got to talk to her anyway, so I'll bring that up.
Okay.
I can just imagine a reply like, I'll take the survey, but my internet service is down. Some guy's got a charter, I'm just trying to be sarcastic,
We are gonna, cultural chaos is this weekend too. If people are around and walking, Tom's gonna be in our, I'm also on the board of the Easthampton Youth Soccer, and we're doing a dunk tank, and
Yeah.
Tom's gonna spend some time in there, so if anybody wants to dunk Tom, it's a penalty kick dunk tank, it's a little more difficult than just throwing a ball, but, yeah, so if anybody's there, and I'll put some out with our table and stuff, and,
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, maybe we can get some more people that way.
Okay. That's awesome.
All right. Any more comments on the public survey?
I I'm surprised to see how many people are working from home or,
That was
Yeah.
significant when I saw a lot of people. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
confirms my suspicion that it's continuing to grow.
Well, I mean, it definitely is. But it also, like, I mean, one thing I want, and there's nothing we can do about this other than just push it hard, but, like, you know, since we're going to be presenting on these results, if you are somebody who's not a big fan of this, you could probably pretty easily make the case that this is the sample of, like this isn't this isn't a super representative sample,
Right.
And that is the sort of data point
Self-selecting.
that they could, like these are the people who, and any survey is going to be like that to some extent, but like, you know, I still think the results are powerful, but it is like stuff like that is like, it's an interesting thing of like, okay, so who isn't seeing this? Because yeah, the super tech savvy telecommuters are definitely seeing this.
Right, exactly. And also clamoring for it and
Yeah.
amplifying the message. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. So let's move on then. So we have Chris Lynch here to brief us on the offerings of Matrix 1 and how they may be able to collaborate with us on our project.
Okay. First, thank you for the time. I actually counted up the cards, so there's one here for everybody. I'm passing around. The way this normally works is, as I present, after I present, I should say, or after I've actually left, you might think of a question. Don't hesitate to give me a call or an email. Again, my name is Chris Lynch, and I'm going to stand just so I can see everybody.
Giving a lot of time to this.
Okay, extra. They give me. It's amazing how far a box of like a couple files will go.
Right, I know.
I keep it in the back of my car along with a ton of other stuff, but so every meeting I go in, I just put a pocket full of. There's actually two companies. There's Matrix Design Group and there's Millennium Communications. Matrix Design Group does the engineering and Millennium Communications does the installation in the electronics. So we separated out the design and the build. Or as like we like to say, we can take any fiber project from concept to completion. And it made sense to do it that way. We've been in business for over 22 years, based in East Hanover, New Jersey, privately held. We've built literally thousands of miles of fiber network and done thousands of fiber projects. Included in those fiber projects is we built 10 rural New England towns with fiber to the home, and we're in the process of building 5 more. We built 9 in Vermont for EC Fiber, the first 9 EC Fiber towns that were built. We designed them, we built them, and we operated that network for the first 3 years of its existence. So we put into place the billing procedures and systems, the customer support procedures, and the tech support systems. We're in the process of building a 4-town expansion for Burlington Telecom. We weren't involved with the initial build of that one. I always have to mention that for people familiar with that project. And we're also in the process of building the town of Petersham, Mass. And the town of Petersham is actually a public-private partnership where we're paying to design it, build it, and operate it. And the town is providing us the right-of-way, but we'll get to that. So we have an extensive background in fiber. That's all we do is fiber networks. Some of the customers that we've worked with over the years, some pretty major names. It's tough to see here, but on the bottom we got 4 in blue. Bell Labs, we actually might have built the first residential broadband network in the country. Bell Labs was doing a project with Microsoft for a product that they had. It was called At Home. That product really never went anywhere, but they were looking into the future saying everybody's going to need broadband from home. So we had to connect the scientists and the workers at Bell Labs to their house with fiber so that they can use the At Home product. Rutgers University, we've connected all of the Rutgers campuses in New Jersey with fiber. We did that years and years ago. We still maintain and operate that network for them. Public Service of New Jersey, we did 2 multi-million smart grids for them. And then Homeland Security, we did a network operations center for them. Obviously, that has to be 24/7, and it can't have any downtime. I just point out those four to kind of show that, we could do all different types of fiber projects. And then on red, our three largest billing customers are actually Verizon, AT&T, and Level 3. Level 3 is now part of CenturyLink, but those are the three largest internet providers in the country, and they choose to do business with us. So you might not know our name, but inside the industry, we're pretty well known. And I should say, most of our business comes from referrals. Maybe somebody went from Verizon to AT&T. Next thing you know, we're from AT&T. Now for Verizon, we actually last year did a 7-ring fiber backbone in the city of Boston that included a secure link for the Federal Reserve Bank. So our projects are fairly extensive. And this is just to give you an idea that, we say that we kind of know what we're doing. I'm not trying to sell you on us, but I also want to make sure that I level set so that you kind of understand what you're getting into, because everybody wants fiber, but then the big question becomes, well, how do we pay for it? That really becomes the million-dollar question, or in this case, a multi-million-dollar question. So what goes into a fiber build? Well, first off, there's going to be a lot of engineering. And the first most major thing that you're going to be looking at is a pole survey. Because any type of fiber build is going to be dependent upon where the utility poles are. And counting those utility poles, getting their GPS location, getting to know what's on those poles, is there a transformer, how many other attachments are there. Because the more attachments that there are, the higher the make-ready cost to add another one's going to be. Mm-hmm. So having the pole survey, and that leads to the fiber design. And the next thing would be the utility company pole attachment process, which is not only time-consuming, but it's also very costly. On average, you're looking at about $450 to $500 per pole for the total cost of the make-ready. And that would include everything. That would include your cost that you had for your pole survey, your cost for the pole attachment applications, which can be very expensive, and actually the make-ready work itself. Utility companies these days will include the cost of the police details needed during the make-ready. So that's included in that $450 to $500 per pole estimate as well. Then you actually build the fiber network, right? So the first two steps could take literally a year or 2 years to get all that work done. To build it, most companies will tell you that they can build, a mile a day or more. A crew can build a mile a day of fiber or more. And in a urban setting, it's probably going to be, maybe a little less, because there's going to be a lot more stopping and starting. But a mile a day is a pretty good estimate. And you guys have 90 miles of road in town, so you figure 90 business days, you could probably build the entire network. It's going to take less time to build the network than it did for the make-ready work. Then the next step would be your connection to either the home or to the business. And that should be 100% fiber. You shouldn't be doing anything that's wireless. Simply because it leads to more problems than the money that you're saving. It's better to invest in just the drop. However, if a person is not taking service, then there's no need to provide them with a drop. You have to wait until that service is being requested. There's no need to spend money on something that may never be used. Especially when if it's an outdoor optical network terminal, you could have a lot of damage just from the environment. Bees getting in there, ants, whatever. So only the folks who are taking service should be, looking at getting a connection, whether that be at a residence or at a business. And then the next thing would be the internet service. Are you providing the service? Is somebody else providing the service? That's the thing that's actually going to make this work. Is something that's going to bring in the revenue. And then you get the cost of the network maintenance. So there's a lot of steps that go into building a fiber network. And I know this might be old hat for most people, but I just want to make sure that, again, we level set to say, okay, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. All right, so in the city of Easthampton, you have 90 total road miles. That's from the DPW, and roughly about 6,300 housing units. So based upon 90 road miles, if you did 90 times 5,280, which is the number of feet in a mile, You divided that by 160, which in a city is usually the average span between the poles. You get 2,970. That number can be up or down, but this at least gives you an estimate. Okay, this is the number of poles that you might have in town. If you did the math there, that works out to be roughly about 70 housing units per mile of build, which is a very dense area. And then that doesn't include the businesses and municipal offices or any churches or schools or anything along those lines. That's just the housing units. And I bring this up because I'm going to get to it later on. At 8 subscribers per mile in the city, that's less than a 12% take rate. So it wouldn't take a whole lot of people to make a build feasible. However, the question is, it's been our experience that most of the municipal fiber builds have been overbuilds, where there's an existing cable company and they say, well, we're going to provide a competing system. And most times that doesn't work because people who will tell you that they're 100% willing to change, when push comes to shove and it's time for them to call up and cancel, they might even try to call up and cancel. But Charter or Comcast or any of the major companies, they have policies in place to keep that person on the phone. Hey, listen, we got a great new deal. For the next 12 months, we're going to lower your rate to this. We're going to give you HBO for free for the next 12 months. Next thing you know, the person is worn down and say, all right, fine. We'll just give me the new deal and we'll stick with it. It's amazing how good they've become at that. So I always caution people, anytime you're doing an overbuild, the numbers that you get from people saying they're willing to do it are, however, having said that, the number of people cutting the cords is going way up. I mean, I personally cut the cord about 6 years ago. I have Charter in Worcester. I live in Worcester. Two things I'll say is, I don't miss watching their TV. The second thing I'll say, I'm supposed to get 75 megs, and the best speed test I've ever gotten is 35, and I did that at 2:30 at night. So that's something that's always been a bug of mine. It's like, if I'm being told I'm getting 75, at least in the middle of the night, I should get close to that. But in any case, so that's what you're looking at as far as the overall. When you look at the cost to build a network, the two keys are the number of miles you're going to build and the number of residences that you're going to pass, because that reflects basically the fiber, the make ready, and the house drops or the business drops. So what would it cost to build in Easthampton? A rough estimate would put it at about $13 million.
That's about what this is the ballpark that we can do.
Yeah. So that's about $10 million for the actual build, about $1.5 million for the make-ready work, based upon the just under 3,000 poles, and there's a little bit of a contingency built in there as well. So. But $13 million, we're not suggesting that should go out and build a complete fiber network today, just because the costs to do it are so high that the tax implications would also be very high. And the toughest things to get passed in any municipal organization is a tax increase. Even though broadband is going to be really favorably greeted by pretty much everybody, it's when push comes to shove, the people who want to vote against any tax increase are always the first people who show up at a meeting. But funny story, I told you we're building in the town of Peterson. They're a relatively small town. They have about 520 homes, right? They're also home to the Harvard School of Forestry, and the Harvard Forest is in town. 82.5% of the town, they're one of the largest towns in Massachusetts, but 82.5% of the town is non-taxable, because a lot of it is the Harvard Forest and a lot of it is the MDC property, because they're right on the Quabbin Reservoir, right? So they were starving for broadband. Their only option was Verizon DSL or satellite. Awful. And Verizon has no interest in keeping up their DSL anymore either. So they had a special town meeting to vote for this, and the total vote was 199 for and 7 against. The funny part of the kicker is, of the 7 people who voted against it, 6 were within the first 100 people who signed up for service. So, anyways, that's in a place where there's nothing. Here, when you do have an existing cable operator, it's going to be a little tougher to get people to vote for it, although I could see it passing, but then making it financially viable would be the challenge. 2 suggestions that we would make, that we've seen other places do. One is a municipal fiber network, and then the second thing would be residential betterment districts. So we'll talk about those. So municipal fiber network, about a decade ago, it was pretty easy to sell fiber networks to municipalities because a lot of them had signed up for Centrex, right? And the cost from going from Centrex to voice over IP, basically the cost saving was enough to basically put in all the new fiber, right? So what we suggest is take a look at what you're paying today, what your requirements are today as far as the bandwidth. If people had higher needs, like the schools, as far as most of the school districts that we work with in New Jersey have been increased to 10 gigs, on a ring network, because that's what the schools need, because all the kids are on Snapchat and Instagram. It's just the bandwidth goes through the roof. However, you take a look at what you're paying today, you get an estimate of what it would cost to connect all the buildings, the schools, the fire departments, the police department, and that might be a cost justification or close enough to a cost justification to justify a new network going in. A lot of the towns and cities that have been successful in building a network, that's how they first started off. Like, I'll use the city of Concord, for example, Concord, Mass. I always keep wanting to say the town of Concord because that's what you learned when you were growing up about the Revolutionary War. But, they are the municipal lighting plant for the city. So they have that huge advantage where they already have, the billing system in place. Every house in town is a customer. They already have the bucket trucks, for the maintenance. So they decided to build a fiber network to connect all their substations. So now they had some infrastructure in place. So then they went to the municipal buildings and said, okay, would you like service from us? And the municipal buildings said yes, because it was basically reducing their rates because they were working off of a network that was already in place. Then the next step was for them to say, all right, we'd like to do a trial, for fiber to the home. So we could see if this is something that, the city, the residents want. They voted for it. They put it into place. The city of Concord has both Verizon and Comcast in town. Right? Currently, 17% of the residents are taking service from the Concord MLP for service. And the reason it's only 17% is because they can't keep up with the installations. So they are booked solid for a few months at a time to go out and get new customers on the network.
Is that Verizon DSL or Fios?
Fios.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And it's, and the advantages that Concord has is, again, they already had the infrastructure in place. So they're able to offer a very, very competitive rate against Fios or against Comcast. I think it's like $49 for like 35 megabits. So for most people, that's all they need. That gives them high speed, much better quality. But again, they have the infrastructure in place, so a lot of the costs that you'd be looking at are put to the side because they don't need to worry about it. They also do not do any telephone; they're just doing internet service. Very nice people there. They do an excellent job. I mentioned them and they've been up and running for quite some time now. In any case. Residential betterment districts. This is probably new to most people around the room because even though it's a Massachusetts thing, it's hardly ever used. And most times it was used, it was for sewer and water districts. So part of a town or a city would have sewer and another part did not. And the way that most towns work is for any big dollar item, you need to have a 2/3 majority at a town vote. And if 2/3 of the town has sewer, what's the chances of them voting a tax increase to get sewer to the other third that's not? So they created betterment districts, right? So only the people in that betterment district would be subject to this new tax that's being used specifically to better that district, right? And you can break it up however, politically it's supposed to be broken up in a city or a town. But I actually brought an example of what goes into a betterment district. I can leave with you. It's, that's from the DLS. So that's basically, it's like 15, 20 years old, but that's the official, vantage point of the Department of Local Services, which is a part of the Department of Revenue. So in Easthampton, you could divide, the city into like say 10 betterment districts of like 500 to 800 homes per betterment district. And then you could, each of those betterment districts or fiberhoods could vote whether they want to have fiber in their neighborhood. And if the betterment district votes for it, that tax would be put in place, for a period of up to 20 years. And one of the reasons I'm here is if you did do that and they voted yes, we'd be willing to come in and basically pay to build that network, to design that network, to build the network, to maintain the network, and to operate that network at our expense. So in the town of Payson, we're completely building that network at our expense. The town is paying for the make-ready and give us the licenses to attach to the utility poles, and the town is maintaining that right of way. So that with the pole attachment, once you're on the poles, utility companies will charge you a yearly rental that you have to pay. And it normally works out jointly between the electric company and Verizon over about $13 per pole, or a little bit more than 13. The other thing that we ask for from the town is a place to house and power the network electronics. We're not talking about a huge space. In Petersham, they actually built a room in the basement of their town hall to house and power the network electronics, and that's all we needed. For them, again, it's like we're going to be passing a little over 500 homes, just 2 racks worth of fiber connections and equipment. The equipment actually is like half a rack. There's not a whole lot that goes that needs to go into it. Obviously, for a much bigger place, you'd have much more requirements.
And that involves a revenue share?
No, we put the network in. The town is adding a municipal fee to pay for the yearly pole rentals, and whatever incidental fees that they might have. There might be some insurance, and there's a surety bond that goes to the utility company. In case the network goes, or the people who operate the network go away, there has to be a cost to pull it off. They put that in place because a lot of the fiber companies, from the 80s just disappeared. We do a lot of work for Verizon, basically going back and resurveying their poles, because there's stuff there from MCI and WorldCom that nobody knows who belongs to this, and they didn't have surety bonds, so it stays there because Verizon's not going to go to the expense of pulling it off. And the third thing that we'd ask for is a guarantee of at least 8 subscribers per mile that we build, which goes back to, that works out to less than 12%. And that's based upon 90 miles. There might be a number of miles that can be pulled out because there's no residences there if you're doing just a residential build. Or, if you wanted to pull away, the industrial areas and business areas, I think you're probably best off leaving those in. But, even at that point, it's still only less than 12% of the take rate. And then the city would have the option to purchase whatever network we built after 3 years. And the 3 years was put in place by the attorneys in Massachusetts to make sure that it doesn't look like you're going around the procurement process. Other things that we ask from the city, the utility work does not go out to bid because it only goes to the utility companies. The police details do not go out to bid. They go wherever the city's existing contracts are, whether they're police or flaggers. And the place to house and power the network electronics, that's the only thing that would be subject to Mass 30B procurement requirements. And we would help you write the specs for that. Say this is what we look for. As far as a place to house and power the network electronics, the only key things that we look for is we ask for it to be above the floodplain. We ask for it to be in a secure building where it's locked up, where not everybody has access to it. And we want to make sure that we have 24/7 access, because when there's a problem on the network that physically requires somebody there, it always happens in the middle of the night. It's never during the day, with a 9 to 5. And that's basically all that we ask. The buyout option is based upon a set formula, so you know exactly what it is, going in. So here, if we build out the entire city, it'd be about $10 million. But that $10 million would come down by a set amount every year until in year 20, it'd be just $10. We're taking a lot of risk on ourselves, but we feel like if we do the job that we expect to do, that this will work for everybody involved to be a true partnership. Then the next question.
There you go.
All right.
You're going to get to it.
All right. So right now, again, our model was built, 9 Vermont towns and the town of Leverett, Mass. This is what we expect it takes to break even on the network. You have $95 a month for 50 megabits symmetrical. You have $135 a month for 100 megabits symmetrical. And we could easily be saying that 50 megabits is a gigabit connection. When we built the town of Leverett, they have roughly 820 homes in that town. They had an incredible take rate of about 86% of people took service. But the thing is it was paid for with a general obligation bond. And they decided that because everybody in town is paying for the network, everybody's getting a fiber drop, everybody's getting an ONT, an optical network terminal. Because it's already there, it made it easy for people to take the service. And because all they had was Verizon or satellite, it was easy for people to say, we need to have broadband. The one thing that I'll say, despite the huge take rate, that 14 to 16% who did not take service usually fell into one of 3 categories. Either they were elderly and just didn't use the technologies, they were on a fixed income. No matter what the age, they just didn't have the money for one more bill. And third, there was a lot of people in that town who were land rich and cash poor, where they built their house back in the 70s on a really large plot of land. They're paying a ton of assessment fees, so they're paying a lot more for the broadband than the next door neighbor because of their land, but still they can't afford another payment, a monthly payment. So we try to make sure that's kind of fair to everybody. The $95 for building in a town that has nothing, that includes our investment, our expectation to recoup our investment. It includes the cost to maintain the network, and it includes the cost to operate the network. And they're about equally across the board, right? So in Leverett, there's no cost to build the network because that's on your taxes. An average home in Leverett at the time was $275,000. That's since gone way up because they have broadband. But the average home at the time was $275,000, and the average tax increase was $209 a year for 20 years. So it wasn't insubstantial. When you added up the tax increase and the monthly cost for the ISP and the MLP fees, which is the cost to operate and maintain the network, it works out to about $95. The town of Alford, which is a smaller town just west of here, they put in a network, and their average cost for internet service is $110 plus their tax increase. Right? So a city of this size, the big question would be the take rate. How many people would sign up for service? And the question of how many people would sign up for service would be, hinged to what's the cost, and how much better is it going to be over the cable operator? Because I could tell you right away that Spectrum's going to come back and say, our average customer now we bump it up all the speeds to 100 megabits. Right? I'm surprised they haven't done that already. But
they're supposed to be 100 megabits.
Oh, yeah. So you run into
advertised.
Yeah.
I'm getting slightly over 100 when I do a speed test.
Really?
Yeah.
I get
Only in one direction, not symmetrical.
Yeah, not even close.
We feel that life today is becoming more and more symmetrical. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the younger generations, a lot of what they're doing is uploading. You know, whether it's to Instagram, whether it's to YouTube, or whatever. A lot of what they're doing is even uploading to the cloud. And a lot of businesses, you know, people working at home, a lot of what they're doing is uploading. You get anybody who works as a photographer, you know, uploading those files. It's like, you know, a lot of them have got into the habit of, you know, hitting click when they go to bed and hoping that the files go through when they wake up in the morning and have their coffee. You know, you get small companies that like do even machine work. A lot of them have to move to places that have broadband because all of their work is being sent to them as CAD files. And if they can't respond back to the changes and stuff, you know, the people who are hiring for those jobs, find somebody else. You know, so broadband is becoming, you know, a necessity in the world. We would also offer a $20 voice over IP line. We feel that voice over IP will kind of go away, you know, sometime in the fairly near future, mainly because of these. You know, everybody who has a smartphone, their phone will work off of Wi-Fi. And the cell companies want you to get off their network and onto your local Wi-Fi, you know, because it frees up their network. You know, so another cost savings that a lot of people look into is like a lot of times you're able to go from a higher cell plan to a lower cell plan because every time you're at home, you can do everything off your Wi-Fi. You know, so it's one of those, you know, kind of hidden cost savings. We also offer a managed Wi-Fi service. It's 802.11ac. The equipment that we use is rated for residents of 4,000 square feet. You can also use mesh devices to basically extend that if it's not enough. I will mention that our connection from the road or from the pole line is up to 300 feet, whether aerially or underground. If it's a little bit over that, it's no big deal. We're not trying to make any money from the installation connections, but it's the subscribers that we want to have. As far as underground from the road, it's up to the homeowner or property owner to provide us with a conduit that's usable. So if it's not usable, they have to put in a conduit that is. Our folks are highly paid technicians. You know, this would not be a prevailing wage job because it's private funds. Our techs, most of them make more than prevailing wage. It's the guys who are going for coffees for the techs that we don't want to be paying prevailing wage. But if we were to put in conduit, you would have a guy that's making more than prevailing wage doing a job that could be done, you know, by the homeowner themselves or by somebody who does sprinkler systems. We're just looking for, you know, a small conduit with a pull string. But anyways, the equipment that we use from Calix can do NG-PON2, which is up to 10 gigabits symmetrical. So if there's anybody in the city that says, hey, listen, you know, we want to support the network, but we need a gigabit, you know, dedicated to us, or 10 gigs dedicated to us. I'm not sure if there's anybody doing 10 gigs yet, but you might have somebody who wants a gig get dedicated, not a problem. But we look at everybody on a case-by-case basis and basically do it on a cost-plus basis. You know, what's our costs, you know, to maintain that connection, you know, and you know, try to get it to them as inexpensively as possible. One of the expenses that goes into this is the actual cost of the backhaul. So when you build a network, you'll have three components. You'll have the fiber that's going to the premise, and we recommend doing a GPON design. So it's a shared network, you know, like a 1x32 would probably make the most sense. So one fiber could support up to 32 subscribers. That's the same network that's being used by AT&T, Verizon, pretty much anybody who's in this business. The network that they built in Leverett was active Ethernet, and we completely disagreed with that. So they have one fiber going to every single person's house. You know, that sounds great on paper, but you have a tree limb comes down and cuts that fiber, it's going to take you 4 or 5 times longer to fix that and splice everything back together than it would if it was a shared network. So the amount of time that the people on that neighborhood are out is going to be much longer than if it's just a regular GPON network. The couple things that we built into our agreement is the standard tier. We work with the city or town to say, all right, we're going to fix that price for 2 years. Thereafter, we can only increase that standard tier by that year's CPI increase, which is set by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. It's normally between 0 and 2%, right? So it's not a big increase. It's just something that we might be able to take advantage of, we might not, depending upon if everybody's happy. Anything above and beyond that would have to be approved by the city. We want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable.
Does this price include an upfront installation cost for a homeowner?
There would be a $400 installation fee, and that would be broken into 2 payments. So there would be one that's paid before service, and the second one would be paid just before service, or we'd be willing to break it up over 12 months and just add it into the monthly bill. The ownership of the company feels that there should be skin in the game from everybody involved. So the city would be putting skin in the game by providing the right of way. The homeowner would be providing skin in the game by paying for the equipment that's they're not even paying for the equipment that's going in their house, but they're paying something that makes them know that this is worth money. It's not something that we can just play frisbee with. And then we're obviously putting skin in the game with the most of the costs. And if we, like I said, build the entire city, our costs to build would be close to $10 million. The FCC definition of broadband, that's in the agreement, that our standard tier will always meet or exceed the FCC definition of broadband, which today is 25 megabits down, 3 megabits up. But in, say, 5 years, they change it to 75 down, 75 up. We're obligated contractually to increase ours as well. But we feel we're going to always try to stay above the curve, because you're going to see the demand, and as the demand rises, basically this is an easy problem to fix. You throw bandwidth at the problem, and that problem kind of goes away. People, it's like your income. Your expenses rise to meet your income. Your broadband requirements increase to meet whatever bandwidth that you're being provided with. One of the things that we offer too in the agreement that I didn't mention here is we give a member of the city, somebody that is appointed by the city, read-only access to the network, so they can see all the reports that we see. So you can see the actual performance of the network. So if you see like around 8 o'clock at night, this network is tapped out. Everybody's trying to get on, but they're being told they're getting 50 megabits and they're only getting 20. Then that's a problem that needs to be solved by putting more bandwidth out. Our rule of thumb is 1 gigabit per 500 homes passed, which is pretty much an industry norm. And the thing about that is the cost of a gigabit. If you buy 1 gigabit and you say to the provider, we want to buy a 2nd gigabit, if you expect a discount off of that, you're not going to get one. The cost for 2 gigabits is just based 1 gigabit times 2. And if you go to 3 and 4, it's basically the same story. However, at 4, there's kind of a tipping point where the cost for 4 individual gigs is about the same as a 10 gig connection. So all of a sudden you start getting into some economies of scale. And that's where some of the price savings can come in. Again, this model was based upon rural towns, so we could make some adjustments, because the big issue that you're going to have is $95 versus what I'm paying today, right? And you might find a lot of people will say, listen, I know what I'm paying today, and I know that I'm not getting what I'm saying, getting. You might be getting 100, and if you're not, you're getting 30, then you might set up for service and you might be happy. It becomes a question of the numbers and the take rate. And then the last thing is net neutrality. We're a strong believer in net neutrality. We will not favor one website over another. We will not sell personal information to any third-party providers. Again, these are all things that we already have in writing. And with that, that's it. Open to any questions you have, whether it's about what I provided or anything you've seen from other folks.
Can I start?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so I'm a little interested, like, I'll need probably to actually reach out to you once I've actually read this special assessments and whatnot. Given that,
By the way, I'll scan this
Okay.
tomorrow and send it to everybody.
I can send you the link where I got it.
Oh, excellent.
That would be probably easiest. And the other thing I'll send is I actually learned about this from a guy named Kevin Hart, who is the chairman of the Montague Broadband Committee. And part of Montague was served by Comcast, and another part of Montague, like technically Montague Center, was not. They had nothing. So they looked into this because they were running into the problem. Like most of the people who have internet today are not going to vote for a tax increase for the people who don't. However, the Betterment District would have worked with their case. But when the state came in with their last mile funds, Comcast says, well, we're building this part of town if you give us those funds, which they ended up doing. But Kevin is a good resource to talk about betterment districts.
Right.
I'm happy to provide his contact with that.
yeah, I'm gonna have to check on how that would end up working in the context of a city versus a town. Just legally, I wonder, you know, how that would, because it's not like we have town meetings or anything like that. But yeah, I'll look into that. But one thing that I thought was interesting, a lot of the folks that we've spoken to who have done sort of municipal solutions, we've spoken to Westfield, we've spoken to Greenfield, they both sort of set their own thing up from scratch. They financed those as revenue bonds, not tax increases. And so there wasn't, in those cases, there wasn't a tax increase to sell to people, but you're suggesting like a property tax increase and then also a monthly fee?
Yeah, you could do a revenue bond, and I'm not an accountant. I don't play one on TV. So, you know, every municipality is going to be different. You figure out, okay, what's our goal, and what's the best way to accomplish our goal, and what's the best way to pay for it. So you could do a general obligation bond, which is would be on your taxes, your real estate taxes, or you could do a revenue bond. The problem with the revenue bond is you kind of have to take a worst case scenario view of it. Like, what if nobody buys the service? Then where's the revenue coming to pay for this? You know, that's the kind of the catch-22. You know, the places like Holyoke hasn't built it. They built a business fiber network, but not a residential. Westfield hasn't built out theirs yet. They are, but they started off from a point of strength where they were already the lighting company. You know, so there's a lot of advantages they had, just like the town of Concord had. In Greenfield, you know, they ran into some problems, and I think that they're going to continue to run into some issues. But you know, we'll see. It really comes down to what's it going to cost and how you're going to pay for it. I'm not trying to sell you on one, you know, version versus another. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of, you know, the different options.
So the structure that you're suggesting would include both a property tax increase depending on the bond, and then also a monthly service fee.
Well, the monthly service fee that we normally put in is just to pay for the pole rentals, and that's only a couple dollars.
But the $95 a month.
Yeah, the $95 a month. That's all inclusive for us. It pays for us to do everything, you know, related to the network. If the city was to build their own network, they could probably do better than $95 per month as far as the cost that they're going to provide to the subscriber. However, there's going to be that other thing that's lurking, whether it is a general obligation bond or whether it's a revenue-based bond that has to be paid somehow. And if the fewer customers that you have, the more of an onus that's being placed on those customers for that revenue bond. So that could actually drive out new subscribers. Most of the places that do a municipal bill, you know, in Western Mass now, they are going to the MLP fee where, you know, there's the cost to operate the network and the ISP cost, and then you have your tax increase. the cost to operate the network is divided amongst the subscribers. But if people start dropping off, that cost to operate the network is going to rise up because it's being shared by X number of subscribers, and if that keeps going down, it has to equal out. So if you're doing a revenue bond, you could run into the same problem. Or at some point where it's going to be a losing money proposition to the city to operate the network because you don't have enough people to pay for the revenue bond. And again, I'm not an accountant, I just...
The $95 fee seems problematic because I'm paying $71 right now to charter.
Yeah.
And that's not going to motivate people to move to us if they have to pay, 33% more for the municipal service.
Yeah.
So that lot,
I should have started this off by saying one thing. Matrix is an excellent engineering company. We're an awful marketing company. I'm the very first, and I think most of the people would, back at headquarters would admit that, hey, listen, all of our business comes in from referrals. We don't really need to market ourselves too much. I agree that the 95 when you're paying 71 is a difference. The 95 when you're paying 85 for DSL is a godsend.
right.
However, having said that, our model is really geared toward communities of between 500 and 2,000 homes. When you get into a larger community, when you have a larger pool of subscribers to come through, we'd be willing to work with the city and say, okay, here's a sliding scale. If we have X people signed up, here's what we'll be looking for either the money can go back in, or it could be just taken off the cost of the connection. Or the monthly cost, I should say. We're willing to work with the city on that. But, what we have in writing today and what we provide to all towns is basically a uniform. We're really trying to guard against playing one town against another. You gave these guys $90 when you're charging us $100. We'll just say, okay, we're doing 95 across the board.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the make-ready and actual installation costs, can you give a rough idea about the split between building the infrastructure on the poles and then the individual drops to houses? So like wiring up everything without that individual link to a house versus what it costs to wire all those individual houses?
Verizon, they normally publish at their rates for, on a per mile basis, is between $30,000 and $36,000 to build per home. Their subcontractors normally get $700 a house drop. The town of Leverett, because they are a nonprofit, any new connection that they have on the network, they have to pay the homeowner has to pay the cost of that.
Right.
That cost is currently $2,440.
Okay.
It's fairly expensive to provide a cable drop. Our formula that we use as far as the buyout, we use $22,000 per mile because we build very efficiently. Because again, we're doing the design, we're doing the build, we are subcontracting on all of the work, but because everything is in one house, we get a lot of efficiencies of scale. The house drops, we normally do $1,300 per house drop as far as the buyout is concerned. Now, the cost to drop a fiber, easily is $700 for a location. The cost for the equipment that goes in the house is easily $250. The costs on the back end for the optical line terminals is also normally about another $250. Then you have the back office cost of the technician who sets up the person in the profile in the system, the person who sets up the profile in the billing system, and all the other stuff that goes into making sure that this customer is online. And you're easily well above $1,300. Yeah.
Okay. And my follow-up to that is you, at the very beginning, had mentioned not doing any kind of a wireless link from the pole to the house. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit more about what was behind that.
There's so many things that interfere with that, right? And first and foremost is it secure, right? Now, you could say, okay, I'm giving this person a secure connection, right? But that person's going to have like probably 10 devices that they're giving access to that connection. There's nothing to stop them from giving that same information to the next door neighbor. Hey, listen, you let me borrow the hedge stripper, I'll give you my Wi-Fi password. You know? So it becomes a question as far as security, it becomes a question as far as revenue, and it also becomes a question of the wireless connection is something that's going to need to be updated on a regular basis. When you have a fiber link, you know, you could go 20 or 30 years, nobody knows what the life expectancy of fiber is because it's never failed yet, right? Wireless systems have to be updated like every 5 to 7 years. So you're going to be on a regular basis going up to those poles and putting in new equipment on a regular basis. And that's an operating expense that's going to have to be passed on to the subscribers. Where, you know, it might look good in the first year, but in year 10, you've already paid for the cost of running a fiber to that person's house. It would have been much better to say, okay, you know, fiber to the home, everybody says is best. If you're looking at any greenfield, all the consultants would say the same thing. You know, if you have the money to do fiber is the best answer. So it really becomes a question of, you know, are you being penny wise and pound foolish, in my opinion. You know, we actually sell wireless systems. We're a Cisco certified network provider. I should mention that our CIO is a CCIE certified, which is the top level of Cisco certification that exists in the world. We have another tech who is, I should say engineer, who is CCIE certified, and his certification number was like 58,000 and something. It means that there's only 58,000 of these people in the entire world. In addition, we have 6 other techs who are Cisco certified. So I'm not trying to badmouth wireless. I'm just saying that, you know, in a city this size, if you're going to do wireless, you might as well just wait and hold on for 5G to come around. Because anywhere that they have, you know, fairly good cell signals today, those are the places where they're going to be looking to build 5G somewhere down the road. And 5G will compete against, you know, all other broadband solutions. We think that fiber is going to be the key. Because even the 5G needs fiber for their backhaul. So there needs to be plenty of fiber available for them to put in, you know, their 5G antennas like every fourth or third pole.
Some of what you said makes sense in terms of wireless, but as Greenfield explained it to us, they're not using a traditional Wi-Fi from the pole to the house. They're using a point-to-point, which is locked. So the house next door can't get it even with a password. It's only going to that one receiver on that one house. So is there still a security issue in that case?
Sure.
How's that?
I mean, how secure is that link?
It's encrypted.
It's encrypted. Right?
It's sharing.
It's encrypted to the house.
To the
Right,
receiver.
to the receiver,
Right.
yeah.
Transmitter, receiver.
So the example, if I said, you let me borrow your hedge clipper and I'll give you my Wi-Fi password. If you-
No. The router in the house is sharing its secret with the router in the street, but that's locked down. You don't have access to that as to share with your customer.
And it's a different password than your internal.
They're providing, at some point, they're providing an RJ45 connection to the router
in the house.
in the house.
Right.
If that router is, say, a brand new 802.11 AC Wi-Fi
Okay.
system, and I've got my cell phone here, how do I connect to that?
By password,
by
but you do
password.
that. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what
I mean,
I can share my password with my downstairs.
Yeah,
And it'll be consistent
I mean,
with a
that's not
direct
going to
wired
be.
yeah,
fiber connection
Yeah.
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah, I agree.
Okay.
However, that link, that secure link, it's secure now. In 10 years, is that encryption going to be worth its weight.
It won't be the same encryption in 10 years.
It will be, yeah, it will be.
As you said, you have to update the...
Yeah, they would have to update
Right,
that.
of course.
Yeah. And again, I should also point out that I was a history major in college. So anytime it gets to a big engineering question, I always go back to the folks who have the engineering degrees.
Because I mean, when I lived in Belmont, I had FiOS, and I could have shared my password with my downstairs neighbor. I mean, so why is that any more secure than...
Oh, it's not. It's not, but that's a security risk on your end. Where if you're allowing people in, or if you put your password at 1234, and somebody is able to hack into your system, that's kind of on you. So there's certain things that we try to make sure that, as far as a network provider, we're taking care of the issues that we think should be taken care of, and the risks that should be taken care of. User error is never going to go away.
Oh, no, of course not.
So, what your proposal is, as far as the 3-year handoff, or the option, right, this you buy, essentially you would install the network, you'd create the system, for the billing, tech support, so-and-so, as you said, and you would give the city, municipality, the option to purchase the entire infrastructure after 3 years, up to 20 years, or how would that work as far as the staff? Would it be like your staff leaves and a new staff takes over?
Well, one thing I should do is I should back up and say the way that this mechanism actually works is all of the assets of the network are put into a new LLC, so that everybody knows what exactly is being purchased. So all the fiber, all the equipment, everybody knows exactly what's there. You are buying the assets of the network. You're not buying our staff. So you could buy the network and say, listen, we're really happy with the way you've been running everything, but at this point, the purchase dollar amount represents a huge bargain for us. It would be crazy not to buy it. And then you could renegotiate with us, okay, now what would it cost for you guys to continue to maintain the network, or maintain the network and operate the network? You might decide that, okay, we want to keep these guys for maintenance, but we'd like to bring in a new ISP, or put it out to bid, or whatever you want to do. We're happy with any part of that. But it becomes you're buying the assets of the network. And again, it's going down, it's a set dollar amount every year until it's $10. If you don't exercise the $10 buyout, then it reverts to us as an asset that we continue to own, for as long as we're around. Which also kind of goes into what happens if we go away. It's because all the assets are being put into the LLC, the city would have basically the only right to purchase those. It's a right of first refusal. Even if we sell the company, you'd have the rights to purchase this network, or the rights for the buyout would continue on with the new ownership. Everybody always wants to use all the owners are flying to Bermuda on a plane, and the plane goes down. Like, I don't want to think about that.
How flexible would your group be if we needed, let's say, just one piece of this puzzle? Like we wanted to work with you guys to help us with a survey,
Yeah,
whole survey, or to help us with engineering, but we wanted to do other parts in other ways.
Any and all the aspects of building a network, we're more than happy to do it. For the Vermont Telecommunications Authority, we did all of their pole surveys and all that. So they're like the middle mile provider in Vermont. I will mention that when we did the town of Leverett, it took us 18 months from soup to nuts, including the make-ready period, to build that network, 18 months. They had about 820 connections. We were very, impressed with the speed that we built it. There was 0 warranty defects in the network. And it was described as a world class by every reporter and every government agency that went to visit it. The town of Petersham, we did their pole survey in a month and a half, and that includes the time to do the quality control. So we bring it back to New Jersey, we go through it. If there's like a gap of over 250 feet, so we probably missed the pole. So the first step is to use Google Earth to look down. The second step is to send somebody out who goes, okay, here's the areas that we need to double check, because they don't quite make sense. But normally when we provide a pole survey, it's 100%. When we did the 4 towns for Burlington Telecom, we got all of those done in all 4 towns in a period of a month and a half as well. Just a matter of sending out enough crews. A 2-person crew can do between 200 and 300 poles a day. And again, on the fiber design, any of the engineering, more than happy to work with you. The town of Alfred, we did the fiber design for them, but we didn't build the network. And for Verizon, like we said, that 7-ring fiber network in Boston, we did the engineering. For Burlington Telecom, we're basically working as their project manager and engineer. So we're helping them, basically manage everything, but we're not actually doing the build. We're managing the folks that they hire as the contractors. Yeah, any of the reports, including feasibility studies. Feasibility studies a lot of times is a lot of marketing, but it really comes down to like, all right, what's this going to cost and how are we going to pay for it? And normally, they'll spend a lot of time saying this is what your competition is. You already know what the competition is. You already know what their price points are. And you should be aware that when the competition feels competition themselves, their price points are going to come down. So you need to kind of factor that into your formulas.
I hate to return to this point, but I'm just trying to make sure, because for us, with the environment that we're currently in, people are in the city very cost conscious.
Yes.
So,
I agree.
Yeah. So the idea that you had, or the way that you were pitching it, was that you'd be willing to come in and do the public-private partnership idea, which I like, if areas were willing, if fiberhoods were willing to do these, neighborhood improvement districts, and that would include an increase in property taxes, which I think is going to be a tough sell in just about any part of the city right now. What does the money from that increase in property taxes go to that's not being covered by the fee, the monthly fee that the subscribers are paying?
That in large part would be to pay for the make-ready work in the place and house and power the network electronics. That's pretty much it. Because there's no other cost the city would be incurring, because we would be paying for the design, we would be paying for the actual project management of it, because we'd be doing it internally, and we'd be paying for the construction of the network.
Well, that make-ready work, how much of the 13 million is just the make-ready?
That'd be about $1.5 million, based upon about 3,000 poles.
Just fine. Okay, yeah. All right, yes, thank you, that is helpful.
Yeah, and like I said, we try to be as conservative as possible.
No, and I
So
appreciate
when we
it.
say it's $95, that's for like a town like Leverett or a town like Peterson, most of the towns that we're dealing with throughout New England.
Yeah,
For a city, $95 that's a little bit more than I'm paying today. We would be able to work with the city to say, okay, here's the things that we look for, here's the costs. Here's where if the subscribers raise, those costs are being shared by more and more people, so the amount that we have to charge those people would be coming down.
right.
And that again, those numbers would be above my pay grade, but we'd be willing to work with you. But I wanted to make sure that you understood a starting point. This is what we offer, that we're
Right.
talking to the people who don't have anything.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be interested in, I can't speak for the whole committee. I'd definitely be interested in seeing what sort of a sliding scale like that would look like. One other question, could we get these slides, because I'd like to be able to
Absolutely.
forward them to the mayor, who wasn't able to make it, and yeah, so
Yeah.
that'd be really helpful.
One of the things that Greenfield also talked about was a rollout of IPTV, which was going to be a huge cost savings for their subscribers over cable television. And I know that bundling thing that we're going to encounter when we go up against, or if the town was to do it, or the city to go up against Charter, would be that. Is there any movement on your company's part to provide IPTV or look into it?
Let me give you a little bit of background, on personal background. I got my start working for encoder companies that were encoding the analog signals into MPEG signals, MPEG 2, then MPEG 4. So you can tell I'm going way back. Then I worked for middleware companies that were doing IPTV middleware. Then I worked for a satellite company that was basically had a satellite package that you could beam down to the independent telcos, and they could take this, put it into their IPTV system, and give them all the channels in the world. The satellite division that I was working for was part of SES Americom. They decided to shut down that division because they knew that it was not going to be enough money. You've got people like Dish and DirecTV that are now going completely terrestrial, and they're offering their what was once a satellite offering now completely over the top, right? I also worked in rights, what the cost of the rights are. I can tell you that IPTV is basically an industry that you want to stay out of. You should talk to the folks in the city of Shrewsbury, Mass. They became a cable operator way back in the day because they didn't like the offer that they were getting from Comcast and everybody else. Now they're kind of regretting that decision because they're going to fiber to the home, and all of their customers are saying, "Well, we don't need TV anymore because we're getting everything we need over the top." You got Greenfield is not going to be able to compete against something like YouTube TV. YouTube TV is going to be about 40 channels, including your local channels, and including Nesson. So anybody who wants to watch the Bruins and the Red Sox are all covered. 40 channels plus all that for $50, right? You're not going to have a TV lineup that's going to be competitive. And if you're the type of person who says, I don't need 40 channels, there's only a couple channels that I watch, you can pretty much get whatever you want over the top. I mentioned I cut the cord 6 years ago. Today I have Netflix, I have Amazon Prime, but I don't consider that a cost because I bought that for the free shipping. And I have HBO Go, but I got that from my girlfriend. So my monthly cost for TV is about $10. Right?
Yeah, I think that's the standard we have as well. It's pretty, yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of people who are cutting the cord. They're going to look at what you're offering for IPTV, and they're going to say, well, I can get something better over the top.
It's going to be channels as apps.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused here because I thought we were told by both Westfield and Greenfield that they weren't doing IPTV.
Greenfield
was rolling it out.
Okay, well,
And the
Westfield
savings
wasn't.
that they, no.
Yeah, Westfield's got a whole different model
Well,
where they're helping people get set up with
they'll
all
provide the bandwidth, and then you can cut your own deal with Netflix, YouTube, or anybody you want.
There are some service providers
Right.
that will provide you what you need to do IPTV, and they'll do it basically on a subscriber basis. So you're only paying for the subscribers that you're signing up, right?
Right.
But in the meantime, you have to pay for the head-end equipment to pull down that signal and to receive that signal. And those monthly CapEx costs are CapEx costs or operating expense costs. And you're going to have X number of subscribers in order to reach a break-even point. So you're taking a huge risk that this is going to be successful and enough people want it. But the people who are used to having cable TV are not going to be happy with this version, no matter what the cost savings is. Because they say, well, if I'm going to go a step down to this version, I might as well be doing over the top completely. I could do I could do Hulu, I could do, ABC Disney is coming out with a new package, which is going to be incredible. That's the one thing that I might sign up for, because I like Marvel Universe and I like Pixar movies. So you're going to have the opportunity to do whatever you want. When you're providing IPTV, you're going to have a fixed channel schedule and lineup, right? And when those lineups are set, if you want ABC Disney, you have to get ABC Family, you have to get ESPN, ESPN Plus, ESPN2, ESPN News, and all of these packages that go in. So all of a sudden, what you think is like a good value is really not. Even though you're only paying on a subscriber basis.
One thing that stuck out to me is about the connection speeds. I feel like in a way it's a little bit upsell. Just ask people to pay more money for a speed that's slower than what they're currently getting.
Yeah, this is something that I run into a lot. We feel very comfortable saying 50 megabits. So when you do a speed test, you should get 50 megabits. Unless it's like 5:30 in the afternoon and everybody just came home and all the kids are doing their homework online, or 8 o'clock at night where everybody's downloading their Netflix movie for the night. You might see something less, but as long as you're in the neighborhood, you feel good about it. If you're being told that you're getting a gig and you're only getting 50 megabits, or you're being told that you're getting 100 and you're only getting 30, then that's where the problem might come into, especially if you're being told that you're getting a gigabit connection. Because if your bandwidth is not sufficient for your requirements, what are they going to tell you? You're being told you're getting a gig. You're getting a gig plus? How are they going to market that? However, if you're being told you're getting 50 or 100 and you're always pinging at or just around that, then you feel pretty good. Okay, well, we need to come up with a new tier because everybody's usage is going up. And that's going to happen because the next thing down the road is 4K. And then after that, 8K is, we're going back to the video encoding. 4K and 8K are going to use twice the bandwidth of today's HD TV. So that bandwidth requirement is going to shoot up. And if you're not prepared for that, all your customers who were happy back in the day when they were just using this, for watching a YouTube clip, they're not going to be happy because they're going to be saying, hey, listen, I thought I was getting 75 or 100 megabits and my speed test isn't working. I'm sorry if I went off on a rant there.
It's also the it's synchronous at 50-50 as opposed to
Yes,
100.
of course.
Yeah, and one thing
I don't know that everyone will understand.
No, because these are advertised as down speeds. So it's just people just look at the first number.
Exactly.
We have a problem in that we're advertising a more honest speed, and other people do not. Is my feeling on it. And the other thing I should mention as far as the network is concerned, the download speed is set, so it's kind of capped at 50 megabits. So you're not going to go over that, so you're not using more bandwidth than you're paying for. The upload speeds will burst about 50 megabits. The network uses dynamic bandwidth allocation. So if they knows it's a big file, it's going to burst up to get that big file off the network if there's bandwidth available to do it, because it knows that it's better to get that off as quickly as possible so there's no congestion, right? That's like saying, if you're going to pass an 18-wheeler on a highway, you're only allowed to go the speed limit. No, you whatever as fast as you can go to get past that 18-wheeler. So yeah, we recognize the $95, where we've got a cable operator, and the speeds. And keep in mind that our business model came in place to help the communities that didn't have these things. So those are going to be hurdles. Quite honestly, we're not saying otherwise.
Okay.
So in Westfield, they offer people a gig, straight gig. And where that's far more, that's totally overboard as far as what people reasonably expect to use, at least at this point, I won't say ever. Even Greenfield is offering speeds that are pretty higher than that. I can't remember the exact tier. They also have a tiered plan. Do you think it would not be feasible to have
75?
Yeah, I think they do a 75. They do
They have 3
I think they do a
packages,
150 top end.
In most of the towns that Westfield are building are all also advertising gigabit speeds. Like the town of Leverett advertises gigabit speed, but like I mentioned, they have roughly, I think, 670 subscribers sharing 2 gigabits of backhaul. You know, that's what's going on in these towns where they're getting 1 or 2 gigs worth of backhaul. They're saying that they're gigabit speed. This also goes back to what I was talking about, you know, the cost for the backhaul itself, because what you're going to get out of the network to the outside world is only going to be up to whatever you have for a pipe there. When you are buying in bulk, you know, once you get past that 4 gigs, you're better off getting a 10 gig, right? And when you're talking at like, you know, a population of around 6,000, if you had half the town on, you know, on the broadband network, you'd be having, you know, multiple 10 gigs connections, and your costs would come down, and your amount of bandwidth that's available for the individual people online to check their speeds and say, wow, I am getting close to a gig. That would increase. But it really becomes a question of what are you putting into that pipe to the internet, to the outside world. And again, you know, we normally do 1 gig for every 500 homes passed. So here, you know, you're basically looking at a 10 gig connection or more, probably like 12 gigs. And you want to have like redundant paths if possible, just to make sure for disaster recovery.
Interesting. Well, I'd definitely be interested in seeing, you know, with the knowledge that I know most of the fiber rollout that's occurred in Massachusetts recently, with the exception of a few small cities like us, it's mostly been rural communities, you know, with far setback houses and, you know, big parts of farmland in between them. I'd definitely be interested in seeing, you know, sort of an update thing. I mean, right, yeah, right. With those numbers, it would be, I think, pretty difficult to get people to pay the $400 for equivalent speeds for more money, especially when Charter decides that they're.
I'm not arguing against that.
Yeah, but I'd be interested in continuing, you know, sort of hearing, like, for a small, very dense city with a ton of little single-family homes, you know, 20 feet away from the curb, like, you know, that is a different opportunity. So, yeah, I'd definitely be interested in continuing.
Although the splicing for a house that's 20 feet from the curb is the same as the splicing for a house that's 300 feet from the curb. It just really comes down to the amount of fiber, and today's cost for fiber is really inexpensive. Right. However, it's the volume of homes. And again, this model is designed for communities between 5 and 2,000 homes. You know, so in communities that don't have anything, it's complete greenfield. So we'd be willing to work with the city, but we want to make sure that you guys are interested in this. You know, because we're doing a lot of stuff. You know.
Yeah. I mean, and just this entire organization, this committee is an advisory committee for the benefit of the city council and the mayor, who would ultimately be the people who decide. But, you know.
Well, let me ask you a question. As far as charter is concerned, when was your last franchise agreement?
No, it was for long. It was longer ago than that. Maybe.
Yeah, because the closer you are to
it was Mike or Karen who signed.
Yeah, it was during Karen's administration, so
It might be
Since
4 to 5 years old.
yeah.
So normally those are like 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, 15.
I
Yeah.
think we have a 10 year.
Yeah, so they don't have a lot of incentive to upgrade anything because they already have a franchise agreement. The only thing that could get them off a dime is if they think there's going to be competition, real competition, and fiber represents real competition for them. So even if the threat of fiber brought them to the table and said, you know, we're going to upgrade the facilities, and all of a sudden, you know, you're getting 100 and you're only getting 30, you know, even if they upgrade the facilities so that you're also getting 100, then it's worthwhile. Just the threat of doing that. We did the town of Princeton, Mass. You know, beautiful town in central Mass. They had, I believe, about 1,300 homes. So you'd think they'd be a target for the cable companies, but they weren't. For decades, they tried to get the cable companies to come in, and they said no. We brought them to town meeting, they approved the funds for the make-ready work to get this done. Next thing you know, both Charter and Comcast came in and said, we want to build here. They were the only town in the country that had 2 cable operators that came in the past 10 years and said, we want to build in this town. Now they have Charter. So, and we don't feel bad about losing that opportunity, because the goal was to get everybody, something.
Now, in a small town, a small city like ours, where a lot of the properties are probably quarter acre or less, would it be a substantial cost saving overall if you were able to feed, say, 3 or 4 properties from a single pole?
Yeah.
So, that might bring those costs, those installation costs.
Yeah. And one of the things, we're a big Corning company. I should mention that as far as the equipment that we use in the fiber system, we try to standardize and we feel is best in breed. So we use Calix for our fiber access gear. We use Corning for our fiber, and we use Cisco for our networking equipment. The Corning has a modular system that is really designed for urban environments. The connectorized system would have a port where you could plug in multiple connections. So that would cut down on the labor that was needed to connect the houses. So you'd be looking at maybe doing a port system or a connectorized system to decrease the costs. In a rural environment where every house is different, every driveway is different, the connectorized system doesn't make sense. Mainly because the average length of the connectorized drop is 150 feet. So if you have anything above 150 feet, you're making a customized connection anyways. So you're not saving any of the labor that you were looking to save. But yeah, there will be some savings there.
I have another question. We've been focusing on the financial aspect of kind of this neighborhoodized residential rollout. But you mentioned sort of starting with a municipal, like a ring network. What does that look like in terms of costs and model of costs?
Well, you could use the $22,000 to $30,000 per mile build is basically as your thumbprint. If you figured, okay, how far apart are the municipal buildings? And how far apart are the schools? There's been a change.
The municipal buildings and the schools in Easthampton have already been hooked up on fiber through the E-rate program.
I was just about to say that.
Okay.
Well, E-rate actually changed and we do a lot of E-rate work. E-rate changed a while back to, it used to be just the bandwidth. But then they decided to allow the connections to be part of that E-rate cost as well. So a lot of the schools put fibers between their schools, or the school districts, I should say. And then they included like the libraries, and then it was very inexpensive to connect to that network from the municipal buildings, so the municipal buildings could add it in. So, and a lot of the cable companies became wise and said, well, we're going to do that because we have to build out in the city anyways, and we'll provide that connection for free, which is their way of kind of, making sure that you always remain a customer. And then on top of that, they have, the PEG program, where they would provide X percent per subscriber that goes back to public television, which we'd be happy to do if there was a public access fee that needs to be put on there. We'd do the same thing. We basically would charge that to the subscriber, collect it, and then hand it over to the local access folks.
Because Greenfield said they weren't allowed to do that.
As an LLP?
As an LLP.
I don't know why.
They couldn't force anyone to pay any subscriber fees that would go back.
They didn't say that they couldn't. They said they were trying to figure out how to do it. But they weren't sure they had the
FCC
legal
wasn't
authority.
up until this point.
Yeah.
The FCC was saying, no, you can't.
Yeah, the FCC doesn't know what an MLP is. An MLP in Massachusetts pretty much it's a private business, so it has the rights to do kind of whatever it wants.
Okay.
As long as, my understanding on an MLP is like you could form the MLP with certain revenue. or certain, money from the municipality, but that's it. Anything else has to come from the operating of the MLP. And if you need to go back and get money, that's a big problem. Because the MLP basically is set up as an enterprise fund where, they're allowed to act as a private business. So a lot of the things that were applied to a municipality, like going out to bid for products, they can basically decide what they want to do as the MLP. So I don't know why that, that you would be able to provide, whatever.
I have a question. So we have a vision for providing both residential and business customers. Does your model account for business customers? Is there a different fee, or do you just say residential, meaning anybody?
We used just the residential because when I talked with the assessor's office, I had the number of resident housing units. I didn't have a number of businesses. And then you have to take a look at what are the businesses paying.
Right.
And you need to customize a plan that makes it attractive to the businesses to get on the network. And I don't think that's a problem because most of the networks will decide, or most of the businesses will decide, we need a really reliable, fast-speed network to operate our business. And that's an expense that they're willing to, include in their monthly nut as far as, this is the cost of doing business.
So would those prices be the same if a business, day one, if you had a business signing up, or would you have a different tier of pricing and speeds?
Yes and no. So like in Peterson, we're just doing the residential rate. We have a number of businesses that are signing up for it.
Yeah.
The question becomes, it is a shared network. And if you're a business, you're expecting a higher reliability. And you want, so you're talking about creating classes of service. And you're giving the businesses a priority. And if you're giving them a priority, there should be a cost associated with that priority. So there probably would be a higher rate for a business versus a residential, but there would also be a higher class of service to make sure that they're getting, basically first dibs on the available bandwidth. Those are all the details. We're happy to work with the city to make sure that you understand, here's the measurements that we're using, this is what we're recommending, and this is why we're recommending it.
I think that's what we've kind of arrived at on our own part. We're going to tier it because businesses will lose more and demand more.
Well, kind of going back to the question, if there is an existing fiber network in place, then the question becomes, okay, who owns that fiber, right? If the city owns the fiber, there's no reason why, like Holyoke, they can't say, well, we got the fiber in place. Now let's start slowly building this network by offering it to the businesses that are along the route of the fiber network, right? So you get those people in. It's very easy to add additional bandwidth to that network to take care of their requirements, and that could help fund, further expansion into the residential area. And one thing I would say to look into is the city is already broken up into zones by the zoning board. So you have some parts that are just residential only. You can look at those and say, okay, that's a natural fiber hook. How many homes are in that zone? And say, okay, well, let's talk to them. Let's talk to the other folks that are zoned specifically residential and see if this is something that would be of interest to them.
All right, well,
And I know this was a lot to go over. That's why I always start off by saying, if you have any questions after I walk out the door, don't hesitate to email me. And I will send you a copy of the presentation and also a link to the Betterment District. And I'll be honest, I haven't read 100% of that document because it's a government document.
Okay.
Yeah, I started young when I started reading it. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for coming in. It's very insightful.
My job is basically going to municipalities and talking with them. So it's one of those situations where I work more at night now than I do during the day. But every once in a while you have different communities that have different standards. The town of Dublin, New Hampshire, their broadband committee meets at 8 o'clock on Saturday mornings. The town of Harrisville, New Hampshire, their broadband committee was this morning at 9 o'clock. So I was up in Harrisville, New Hampshire, and then basically spent my afternoon hiking. Before I came here. But anyways, that's my tale of woe. I'll pack up and feel free to.
I think we have one more.
Yeah. Okay, thank you again, Chris. Of course, everybody feel free to email. Yeah, you've got any questions. So next point on the agenda is the future public forum. We had spoke last meeting about the plan to have this either June or July.
Yeah.
I feel like June's pretty tight, but
We're gonna give the survey until the 21st, but we can still just leave it live. You
Yeah.
can take a snapshot on that. Every time you download the results to Excel, it takes a snapshot of what it currently has for results, and then you can always compare it. You can also flush it after a while and then start it all
Oh, cool.
over again. You don't have to turn it off necessarily.
So what if we like target, yeah, mid to late July?
Yeah.
That'll give us time to get the results, meet, internally discuss the results, and then be prepared to present about the results and hold a public forum in mid to late July. The timing's not completely ideal because I think a lot of people are going to be away on vacation, but there's been plenty of busy public forums in the summer before. So, yeah, I don't think it'll be a huge issue.
So my thoughts on this, when we have a forum, in addition to discussing the results, obviously we'll give a brief kind of overview of things that we've looked at, the potential models that we, can consider, and then just really open it up to the public and say, what do you guys think? What does the city of Easthampton want to do here?
Right.
There's a gentleman who was responding to my posts and some of the shared posts, and he's a lineman, it looks like, looking at his Facebook profile, and I think he's going to come out to the next meeting. So I think he was like, wait, you guys, he didn't quite know how much research we had done. He thought, oh, we're just going to build a network and then turn it loose. And so I think he'll be useful to have talk to and to hear some lineman stories.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
When you say lineman,
Line person, line.
no, I mean,
He works for either like the electric company or telecom or something. He's up on the poles. So I think he knows some of the practical.
Larry the cable guy.
Larry the cable.
Again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate
is
it.
either that or a football player?
Yeah, no.
Like a lineman.
Huge dude comes in.
Yeah, I just wants to run this up,
Did he your name?
Yeah, I know who he is. I
Wouldn't be
just,
that
it's
sorry.
Juliet's husband who runs the art store in town.
Oh, cool.
He does
Okay.
safe walks.
Yeah.
Constituent.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's our Ed. Yes.
I was thinking that's the guy who works for Charter, Matt Chartier. He's always bird dog and all that stuff.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, telling people what they don't know about the cable and whatnot.
I did want to start us years ago. I wanted to start a separate group that was just to siphon off all the traffic on all the group pages about Charter and focus it into
Just-
one forum.
yeah.
So that, like you could collect it and actually say, here's the here's the documentation.
Yeah.
True.
But any public forum, I don't know. Do you think that that's a good format, that we just like take the slides, cut out the stuff that isn't actually interesting, or take the questions, like make a PowerPoint and just like do the presentation, and then just open it up and it's just public meeting rules. Everyone just sits there and says thank you, and then we wrap it up.
I think.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So you're not supposed to give any.
You're
not supposed to give any commentary or any editorializing.
we cannot interact
Respond to.
with the public.
Right.
The idea is that they, like, I mean, with the exception of sometimes, like, if someone says, like, well, I'm just here to talk about how this other thing, like, and you're like, you're in the wrong room, sir. Like, that's okay, but, like, for the most part, like, what you can't have, and what occasionally has happened, and it's really unfortunate, is, like, having board members arguing with the public, like back and forth, like someone in the audience like yelling and going back and forth. Like, not that I anticipate that with this group, but the idea is it's just about open meeting law. Like, we are allowed to discuss things that are on the agenda. So when people come up, what they're saying may or may not have anything to do with what's on our agenda, so you need to just be really careful about it. But it's really, I mean, basically, it's their opportunity to be heard. But we're not really allowed to respond.
Okay.
If they have technical questions,
We can get back to them, but in that hearing,
So if they ask questions, we can't answer them.
we can record those as questions that we should follow up on, and we as private citizens are fully free to reach out to those people later and say, hey, that was a great question, I followed up on it, and here's what it's saying. But there is, like, when you have a few, like, it's important to control.
But when you want to do it in such a way that it is not, you're taking a public conversation and making it private, but you still want to share that information publicly.
Sure. So then it's also totally possible for us to, at our next meeting, say, oh, so here's some of the questions we got, and hey, we looked into this, and these are the answers. We can publicize that, something like that. We could write. We could make sure that here's the big thing that we can do, because it's the actual function of this group, is we can make sure that any questions that they ask are things that get addressed in our report when it eventually comes out. But what we can't do is get into, like, if the guy says you're all a bunch of communists, you can't say, well, no, I'm not. Like, you have to be like, okay, thank you for your feedback, and then just keep it going.
But you couldn't necessarily get
all that
into
stuff.
the...
Oh yeah, he's in the planning board. He has the
Years. You don't run a meeting that way. The key to that whole thing is the chair. The chair sets the rules. Before the meeting starts, he would say, we're here just to present this or whatever, and we're not going to be taking any questions, and then you go from there. You set the rules before the thing starts. And so if somebody gets ready to start shooting their mouth off, you say, look, that's not part of what's happening here. Maybe in the future, we'll listen to it or whatever. And that's how it's done. It's not that hard, believe me.
But you couldn't get into the debating the relative merits of fiber optic drop versus a wireless.
No, people are welcome to say, here are things that I like about this, and they're welcome to say, I really want to make sure it's important that this committee researches this issue, and then it's on us to respond. And one person can say, I think we should do wireless, and the next person can come up and say, well, I totally disagree. And you totally, like, especially, like, I mean, here was in, like, the cannabis hearings. It was totally like that. Like,
Tomorrow night's a big one.
Like, one person comes up and they say one thing, and then the second person comes up and they say, well, I just want to respond to what that last person said. That's stupid and awful, and in fact, this is what's true. And then the next person comes up, and it was like they were like leapfrogging, but that's not going to happen.
They can't say, well, what's your opinion on,
No, I mean, they can.
I've hardly seen a town meeting limit, you can only go up once and you cannot go up to respond to something.
No, right. The idea is that you can go up once and you've got 3 or 5 minutes.
We've had people go up a couple of times.
If there's like 5 people in the room and you've scheduled it for 2 hours, then you're gonna let.
There's a lot of different things going on there,
I mean, I think the general good rule of thumb is if you, like, nobody can speak again until everyone who wants to speak has spoken.
What you have to do is people can't talk about the same thing. Somebody's going to get up there and say something. They can't be, some guy says something, you can't have somebody going to say exactly the same thing. So you go down a road, this person said this, well, two person later can't be saying the same thing. There's got to be something different. Otherwise, it's ready to go crazy. It's an endless procedure.
Again, you play it by ear because pretty much everybody was repeating themselves at the right choice committee thing, you know.
Right.
That's one reason I didn't stand up and say anything.
yeah.
I have nothing new to add. So I think the crowd, one, will edit itself as far as that goes, and two,
Yeah.
I mean, if it comes to
Yeah.
a point where you're going over the allotted amount of time, then the
Exactly.
chair has
Yeah.
to step in.
Exactly.
So-
And I mean, and I honestly don't anticipate it being a huge deal, but just since when we can discuss this further at our July meeting, but just, you know,
Public meetings are great.
Public meetings are
You get a lot of input from the public, that's what it's there for. That's why everybody's in government.
So basically, we
They
have
help
an
the
opening
community, that's what they're
statement,
there
then
for.
we cut to the PowerPoint thing, and then we open the floor for questions.
right, and then once the floor is closed, we
Input.
can, I mean, because this will be a special dedicated forum, I think once that's done, we'll just vote to adjourn
Being
probably.
the temporary who has become permanent clerk, somebody's gonna have to capture all these things. that
Yes.
people say.
And,
It'll be on
How are we gonna go
video,
about
it'll be
that?
on video.
so, right.
Well, that still means I have to watch the video and write everything down, so it's not really doing
Yeah,
anything.
can you imagine, you know, like this guy right here, I'm not picking on this guy,
Right.
but you know, some of this guy said raising taxes, and then you're gonna raise taxes and charge somebody $20 a month or higher than what you're already paying, but I mean,
But again,
how far
he's
that-
talking-
yeah, how far would that get?
What he's talking about is almost all rural communities, which really doesn't compare to us.
Right, that's why I was like, thanks for your time, come back with numbers that make sense for the super
I
dense
mean, you got a giant override coming next year, and
Yeah.
can you imagine raising that on
Plus, if
top
you
of
tell
that?
them it's 50 and you're
Plus-
getting 65 from charter, they're like,
Good luck.
I don't pay $30 more. Even though I get this, the dual upload download thing, I'm like, I would pay
But
to
again,
have
that's
a
all,
faster upload
that's
speed.
all geared into rural communities, and I mean, most of the people
Right.
they're doing, they
Yeah,
don't
so-
even have a second option.
Yeah, I'd love to know if he came back with something that was like a better fit for what we're doing. I'd be interested in seeing
Well,
that.
at the very least, we can use them for the upfront and the full service.
Yeah,
They might be a good resource for some
Right, there's definitely cool stuff
Very
there.
interested in
So,
that person.
You know what I don't understand about that whole thing? So we have fiber on our poles now, do we not?
privately owned fiber, yeah.
All right, so what would this guy be doing? He wouldn't be using any of that stuff that's up there already? He'd be bringing his own stuff in, that's what he had thing?
Yeah, they can't use that.
And it would be privately owned by them too.
Unless we bought it.
Until we bought it. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, it almost
And then
sounds
there's also
like
the
leasing it
municipal
as opposed to owning it. Leasing with the option to buy is basically what they're proposing. And, I mean,
Definitely, like, I'll say this, like, so first of all, it's not ideal.
No.
But second of all, I have looked at, like, where we are relative to our debt ceiling right
Right.
now as a municipality, and the idea of financing for $1 million and then buying a system in 20 years
Right.
that might be basically fully functional
Right.
has some appeal
Yeah.
from a municipal
part of it.
finance
Yes.
perspective.
It does.
Now, again, I'd want to see much lower fees, but also he was talking about the tax increases he's
Right.
talking about were for like, he was saying like maybe $1.5 million of make ready. And we've got a decent tax base. We're not, we're not Petersham. Like we could probably, we don't necessarily need like a debt exclusion special election to find $1.5 million.
Agreed. I think we
And not to seem like, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I forget what's going on.
How would that, getting back to that tax thing, if you have people that don't even have the network or don't even use computers or whatever, I mean, it's probably, how you can have them pay?
Yeah, that's not how I would handle the
it's not a good way to roll it out because, they're saying this thing, well, it won't cost you any time, but then they hit you with that $95 a month.
Yeah.
And that's just gonna wash away whatever goodwill they got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you're just saying people
I'm not
not-
stuck on that number because I don't think that number's going to stick. I think that's
Yeah.
a totally different type of customer, but I'm not saying that the number is going to be acceptable to us, especially if
I
it
think the
speeds.
public hearing will give us a good perspective into what people think is good pricing, and I think people are thinking somewhere in the $35 to $50 range.
You're gonna hear one, yeah.
And I don't think they're thinking it's realistic. I don't think that's realistic.
You need to have a low, medium, and high use.
I don't know if
Like
we-
Greenfield is still.
Expect the unexpected, is all I can say, at those meetings. I've been through a million of those things in the last 12 years, and you're gonna hear everything, you're gonna hear stuff you're not gonna believe.
But it's like, I mean,
I've been to enough town meetings meetings. I believe
It's
in-
true, but I just, you know, it's a beautiful right of our community that everyone has the opportunity to weigh in before a big decision is made. And sometimes people like totally blindside you with things that you've never thought about. So
Exactly.
you know.
They're gonna present things that we never even thought of. We have millions and millions of people get up there and they'll come from a different angle, you know, that they don't even consider. So you know, that's really good for everybody. It really is.
Agreed.
All right.
Jim, do you have another comment?
Yeah, I don't know if this has already been discussed in this committee, but I think there would be people who'd be very interested in very affordable, very low bandwidth plans too.
Like, yeah, I'm
Like
on-
5.5 or like 10.10, you know?
Greenfield was offering, what was theirs at $39 a month, and
He
I
was at
think
15.
it was pretty, it was like in the 10 to 20 range, I think.
And like, if
what I
that's
need.
symmetric,
Yeah.
then that's
Yeah.
really appealing to
Right.
people.
But I think the problem with that is that people would take that, but then the overall pool of income wouldn't really make
Right.
it work. So I ended up
Obviously.
I think they had to eliminate that option to become sustainable.
Yeah, if we had people taking that, we wouldn't even really be funding the cost of the drop.
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
You know.
Yeah, we have to consider that too.
That's something that maybe down the road, once more of the infrastructure is in place.
And it's
Because that's
possible.
something that Lake City is doing that's really interesting, is that they're not, unlike Matrix, they're not charging customers for the drop. They're funding that themselves with the
Right.
anticipation that at $75 a subscriber, they're making that money back.
Right.
But they're also not really looking to make profit in the same way that profit motive isn't the same.
Right. They're a nonprofit.
Well, it sounds like everyone here is pretty much in agreement that that plan with those numbers is untenable.
It's done in the long time.
It clearly doesn't, yeah, it's clearly not our
That's the
numbers too.
fastest way
Right.
to turn everyone off.
Yeah, with that slide,
Yeah.
it's like, oh.
Right. I mean, it's like I pay less for that for the same. I mean, given I never actually get that speed, so like but like speed isn't my issue, to be honest. All I ever do on the internet is like it's price, it's customer service, it's reliability. The speed is like when it tanks, then it sucks. But like
Exactly.
the like.
Speed's the least of it.
The 30 or whatever that I probably realistically
You need a minimum viable speed for streaming.
Right.
If it dips under that, it's going to start getting
Right.
blurry.
That's what I need. I need the speed that allows me to watch Netflix
Right.
while, you know, someone else in my house is like playing video games, and then that's not gonna.
We've started to see the effect of that because we've got 2 kids and we've got our own stuff. And it's more or less like it's the startup stuff. When I'm starting to do something, it's like I'll be like, why is this slowing down? It's because at the same time Judy's playing Minecraft and watching Minecraft videos and Toby's somewhere doing something else, and it's like, oh, now I get the bandwidth problem. Like it's
But again,
it's initial congestion. It's not.
But all of that also is down bandwidth, not up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this, you know, the symmetrical part, I think, is only critically important for people who spend their days working from home.
Yeah.
Or
Like my wife who's on
people
video
who
conferences.
upload endless amounts of high resolution content
People
on the
who put a
internet.
lot of pictures of their dog on
everyone
Facebook.
under the age of 30.
Well, and the reliability of up is way more important than the bandwidth of up, usually, for the average person. Because if you're loading a web page,
Yeah.
your request going out is how you get
Yeah,
the
but
web page.
that's
you know?
that's minimal.
It's minimal bandwidth, but if your latency latency on long, then it feels like your down is really slow. You know, the fact if you have 10 milliseconds up, then it feels like your web browsing is super fast. If you have 100 or 1,000 milliseconds up latency, then all of your down has that delay. It's kind of like talking to someone in Europe and like,
Yeah, and that's terrible for teleconferencing too.
yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that effect with
And that's-
cell phones where you feel like you're having two separate, like you're always stepping over
Yeah.
each other's.
Right.
And, like,
And that's
this isn't going very, especially if you're having like a phone interview. It's the worst feeling.
Like that's terrible. And then for the elder community also, that's becoming a bigger thing because they want to Skype their kids.
Yeah.
They want to Skype their grandkids.
And Skype
And-
is all upload.
Yeah, and that's that's awkward when people suddenly get all pixelated or whatever. So.
He made a good point, I thought, about, I mean, you can debate all day whether even 4K or 8K anyone needs it or is necessary, but that's gonna get marketed.
Yeah.
And people are gonna get TVs and they're gonna buy YouTube plans and streaming that does 8K and 4K, and so that's gonna be a big part of the bandwidth. I mean, and it's gonna grow over time.
Yeah, that was what I saw in the results so far is that the average respondent has 2 to 4 people in their household, and typically 8 to 10, even more devices. Which is an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
That's gonna.
Oh.
I think the devices thing is gonna keep growing, even though the number of residents in the house.
Yeah.
I mean, come to my house any given evening,
Yeah.
and I personally am going to have 3 devices running. I'm going to have
So that's what
my
it's-
computer and then my laptop for work that I'm doing on the side, and then
TV.
also people are
One
coming
person,
with my
2
phone.
devices, never stream, don't play video games, so I think you got free
I
internet.
do exactly the same thing. I just turn the thing on. I just want it to work. That's all I want to do. Just
For
work.
25 years in business, I just won't use such.
I thought it was interesting what he said about IPTV. I think, the way Greenfield presented it was like, this is this amazing thing.
Well, what did I miss up there? Because I thought they were also offering third-party stuff like YouTube and.
Well, anyone can just do that stuff.
Right.
I could go get
easier
YouTube
to do
TV.
it. They're selling you all the equipment.
Well, they're
Amazon
selling you
Fire
the
Stick
menu on the
and,
screen and the remote in your hands,
Yeah.
basically.
But Greenfield was selling you the package.
There's no equipment that Greenfield provides.
Right.
Everything is in the cloud. The DVR is in the cloud.
Right, everything's here.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I mean, I agree with what he had to say. Is that we're going to be piecing together these packages rather than
I
look
always
for.
thought that was what we were aiming for, was
Yeah.
just provide the
These are
capability of
apps.
streaming TV and
HBO is
let
an
people
app.
cut their own deals.
Part of it.
Why do we want the overhead?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as, they're sort of already out there, but as soon as the sports packages go more mainstream, I know Hulu's got one,
Yeah.
and it's something.
Amazon has one, and
Because that's, to be honest, the only time I watch live TV
Right.
is like Massachusetts sports,
Yeah.
or sometimes like the Olympics or whatever. But past that, like anything else, I can watch the next day. It's really just sports that I need. Like I can't be watching the Patriots the next day. Like that's not how it works.
No, that's not good.
So.
But I think if he's saying that YouTube is close, or like even Apple could tomorrow come out with something.
Apple
like
announced
this.
today that they're replacing iTunes with something.
They're breaking it up into its constituent apps.
Do you guys ever watch the Red Sox game the second time around?
What's that?
The Red Sox, when they come on at midnight or like 1 o'clock?
Oh, they rebroadcast.
Yeah, so the other night, they scored like 8 runs in the 6th inning or whatever the hell it was. So I wanted to, I go to bed really late anyway. Anyway, I turned this thing on specifically to watch this 1 inning. And it's like 1 o'clock. So I'm watching it. I fell asleep and I missed that stupid inning. I woke up at 2 o'clock and the game's getting on. I missed that stupid inning. I stayed up to watch.
The record right now on the Red Sox TV is offering 2 games for a Payson.
You sound like a DVR right now. Like if I was a DVR company,
Yeah,
I would get you to tell your whole story. And it's like,
Rewind. You're the new spokesperson for.
That's so funny. I mean, I'm just going, I gotta watch this thing. I watch all these crazy hits and the balls going all over. I nod off and the thing is over with. I'm going, you've got to be kidding.
I watch ESPN until I fall asleep between 8 and 9, and then I get up the next morning, go to ESPN, and find out who won.
Yeah.
I'm a dinosaur. Don't need no streaming
Alright, guys.
TV.
We're going off the rails here.
Brings back.
Under this, I'd like at the next meeting for us to elect officers officially. I think that we are past due to do that. Patricia, I would love for you to join our committee.
Okay, I will do so.
Excellent.
I can print out the application and Fill it out and then scan it and send it off to the mayor.
Yeah. Oh, one thing. So I spoke to a new member of the Board of Public Works, who, as you know, also sends a member to this committee because Stan left. The guy who replaced Stan, basically. Basically, my understanding of what's going on there is that immediately after he joined, another member resigned, so they're down to 2 members, and the chair was of the mind to just like wait until they find an additional member to take votes about like sending people, like things like that. But the new guy, Tom, is like, his name's also Tom, and so that's gonna be awkward. But like, he really wants to do it, and I was like, is it possible? And he's like, I'm like, I'd be happy to write the chair, but like, is it possible that maybe we could convince her that that's something that really we'd love to see happen before our next meeting, so that we could have a full committee and vote for officers and do all that stuff. So that's I'm hoping that happens this month, and I'm gonna stay on that.
Great. So you were planning to get the other standoff worked, so.
So now we'll have 2.
So now we'll have 2 Toms.
That'd be terrible.
Did you say that committee has 2 people on it?
There's 3 people on the Board of Public Works,
Okay.
and currently one of them resigned.
So they have 2.
So they have 2. So, yeah. If anyone wants to join the Board of Public Works, there's an opening if you want.
It's a gateway to
It's gotta
excitement.
be a thankless job, with all the streets the way they are now.
Oh, yeah. No.
Get it.
Yeah, you get to be the one who increases people's water bills. You know, so, and you get paid almost nothing for it. Really great opportunity if you're looking to have your neighbors like you. No, I'm kidding. It's a great thing. It's very good that people do it. I'm just like, I don't envy
Listen
those.
to the
those-
road stuff because, like, what can you tell them?
Yeah.
Hey,
They finally repaved East
They
Street.
finally paved East Street. They did a nice job too. People like that. Now if they just get down to my end of East Street.
Okay.
Well, I have one other question. Has this committee discussed at all, and I don't even know if it's viable, but municipal 5G network or equipment?
Came up with Holyoke a little bit because of the use of their.
Do we want to put it on
Hours.
the agenda for the next meeting?
I can do a little research into it too.
Yeah, why not? Sure. Let's do it.
I would personally
Brought that
prefer
thing
to
in
stay
the
away
paper, everybody gets.
They touched on that when we met.
But it isn't on the agenda.
Radiation and stuff.
Do it up on the survey.
Discuss it.
Oh, wow.
The towers.
I'd like to read that.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a different take from all 3 of them now. I think Holyoke was the most worried about 5G. Greenfield was like, we don't care about that. And I think that was kind of
That
the way
has something
Westfield
to do
felt
with
too.
geography, yeah.
I'm sure that it's a lot.
I mean, when it gets put up on the towers, it's going to be a competition for for fiber. I mean, it's fast.
Whether or not it even gets here, I think our concern is like Verizon doesn't have the best
Just
track
a
record
quick
with this
reminder that this isn't on the agenda.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's hold off on that
Yeah,
conversation.
let's
Thank you for
discuss
bringing
this.
it up.
Turn off the camera.
Yeah, turn the cameras up, then we can talk about it.
Kidding, of course.
So, all right. Is there anything else for new business? Sounds good. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We are adjourned.